Let's go back then to Lovin Dubai. You guys kicked it off, and I've said it to you so many times before, mate. I think you've done a beautiful job of being so edgy, but you've probably upset a few people, but you've just done a great job of making people laugh, putting out good content, and in a region where we're so multicultural that not everyone gets the joke the same way, and you have to like navigation is so hard. I guess the question is like, how do you approach it? How have you managed to sort of dance on this tightrope and still be sat with me today?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like I'm not a journalist, and I came from the marketing agency world, so that's a blessing and in one way. But my sister Casey is a journalist, and like we wanted to be a media company. We weren't disrespectful to the media industry. We have the National Media Council, MRO licenses. We hire journalists even to do our branded content.
Right.
We believe in the journalism profession and media. We just need to do it in different ways, like the 5 things I talked about. Towing the line's been hard, and but like media is so new here, right? Like people, you're doing a podcast, YouTube. It's not planned.
Yeah.
If we round the clock back, like the Ottoman Empire banned the printing press. The printing press, the Gutenberg press, is like 15th century. For 300-400 years, there was no printing press in the region, right? Yeah. The first printing press, there was one in Egypt. I saw it in the Scandaria Bibliothek in the summer, 18-something. First printing press in Riyadh was in 1953. Like that's a week ago in the history of the world, right? Like, and the Times in the UK launched in 1775. Okay, New York Times about 1850. 1775, the British Times, the first newspaper in Saudi, Al-Aswad, something Al-Aswad, was in 1775, 200 years later. Media is so new here. Yeah. And the US Constitution was written in the 18th century. The First Amendment, it says freedom of speech. So people take that as a media guideline. It's not. Media doesn't have to be constitution. The law has to be constitution. So I don't know how to figure this out. Saudi have just set up media councils and stuff. UAE have been doing it for a while. The UAE wants to be the media capital of the region. Dubai does, but there is a bit of a love-hate relationship, because sometimes people get trigger happy and they take screenshots of WhatsApp groups, as we talked about, of comments on the Lovin Dubai section, and they're like, you did that. And I'm like, that's society. That's the hate speech that happens on these platforms. Go speak to Facebook for not adding hate speech control mechanism. And they're like, Rich, did I need to bring a lawyer to this meeting? And I'm like, look, like, if you want us to hire journalists and to do something, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it without Western pressure. We're going to do it. I'm an immigrant. I speak a bit of Arabic. Like, I want to do this in the region where no other media person ever did. Rupert Murdoch never came here directly. Like, no one ever did. That's my goal. That's what I want to do. And I don't want dead bodies like Al Jazeera have on journalists, right? We have 2 journalists in Gaza at the moment, and we decided, when the genocide started, we decided to pay them without them posting. So we do the work elsewhere. But like, we think the Lovin brand, it's like, again, I was thinking on the way in, why is Inner Fight so good as a brand in the competition around you? Lovin Dubai works, right? Because it stands out as a brand. And I'm lucky that this city is a thriving economy, and it's really multicultural, and we just have to navigate that. But like, our rules are no Islam, the Prophet peace be upon him, no leadership, and no defamation. Don't say Inner Fight isn't a good place to go, because how dare I? Who the hell am I to stop you from earning a living? And that's the rule. And like, if the Western world wakes up eventually and realizes that the environment here for media is better, it's not toxic, it's not phone hacking dead kids' phones, right? Like News of the World got shut down for. We don't do that here. That's good, Yeah. So like, and we have a journalist now, Lumna. She's amazing. She's ex-editor of Arabian Business. She's growing our Smashy Business platform, and she's like, oh, I need to hold them to account. I'm like, no, you don't. The law will do that. You need to tell stories that didn't exist, like in a positive way or whatever, and like. But we will do that. But it is tricky. We're in 22 cities. I have a journalist in Baghdad and in these places that I'm kind of like, what's the future? How do we keep them safe? And how do we do media in the right way, and we need support. Like, we need people who understand us, and we need governments to understand us, and we need support, because we will do media in these places. We've not, as I said, we've 90 employees. We are hiring people when all journalists are going to PR agencies because media aren't hiring them. We're hiring them. We've the biggest Snapchat shows in Saudi Arabia. We have presenters there that, like, you know, this is what we're doing. We're trying to, against those two currents, like in media, we're trying to build a viable modern media company. And yeah, like the trigger stuff, like I could tell 50 stories about anything from Naked Men and JBR to McGettigan's Q post-pandemic, the licenses being changed, like all this stuff, like the heat that we feel, like the calls that I've had, my passport taken for 18 months, like speaking to the public prosecutor, like all this stuff, the heat and the pressure that I've had for 8 years, like I could go on at length about it.
How do you? I was going to come to that, mate. Not that we want to share about the hot water that you've ended up in, but sometimes when you go on Lovin Dubai Instagram, there's a lot of really angry people, and they're using your platform as, I see it as, they're using it as therapy to speak out. How do you handle, I wouldn't say the hate mail that you get, because I don't think anyone hates Rich. I know you're a good bloke, and everyone has to know you're a good bloke. You're a good bloke from Ireland, and you've said it, and if by the end of the show people don't get it and they've not listened properly, you're just trying to do something, like you're having fun with what you're doing, which is, for me, is fucking amazing, right? But the heat that you guys get at certain points, if it's through comments, if it's through someone taking your passport for 18 months, how do you deal with that as a human being, as Rich, who's just trying to do something good for the world?
But how does anyone in your profession or your sports, how does anyone deal with anything that you have to push through things? How does anyone deal with pressure? How do you get to the top of tennis or the top of the difference between being a CEO of a listed company? How do you push yourself? I want to be the CEO of a listed company. I want to be an immigrant who lists a company in Tadawul in Saudi. Nice. Right? I want to do that. My grandfather listed a company in Ireland. I want to be a CEO who runs a media business against the odds, you know, across a region that no one gave hope for or whatever. So how do you do that? You have to, at some point, manage pressure, you know, and, you know, the heated comments and, you know, all that sort of stuff. Some influencers, when they post things and they get heat, they delete or they turn it off. Yeah. We don't do that because we don't mind if Lovin Dubai gets heat, because that's our product, that's our brand. And if people say you're not Lovin Dubai, well, we're not an influencer. We're not selling hats and T-shirts. We're selling content for free, and then we're monetizing that audience. And we will take the heat. You know, in the UK, people in Liverpool still don't buy the Sun newspaper because of how they treated Hillsborough in 1989, right? Now, if we ever do something that we should be cancelled over, we'll try and navigate that in the best practice crisis management and social media. But there are things that we hold our hand up and we make mistakes for it, right? There's times where, because of how things, I remember we got cancelled for posting an advert for an Andrew Tate event in Dubai, and I'm kind of like, that was an approved DTCM licensed event that we got paid money to promote as an ad. Wow. Right? There was nothing in our ad that was insulting of anyone, right? Sure, yeah. But we got absolutely killed over it by trolls on Twitter, and still are a year later. We apologized. We took the post down. We apologized on an article. They wanted more, right? Of course. And, you know, and in the heat of the backlash, the event was postponed. He still came and everything like that. But there was nothing, there was nothing that breached the media guidelines. There was nothing that we did that was wrong, right? What was wrong was the triggered, what we don't want to incite hate or create unrest in the society. And if that happens in our comment section, then we turn off the comments or we remove the hate speech. There was some racist comments last week over the metro pushing, right? We don't like that. We don't want racist comments. Dubai isn't a racist city, right? But one of our journalists then did a post with a picture of Donald Trump saying this has shown we didn't publish it. this has shown that Dubai has a bigger problem. In other words, that we're a racist country like Trump and America. I'm like, we're not though. Like, there are people who said derogatory comments towards a certain nationality in that. And those people probably are racist.
For sure.
And they shouldn't be. But that doesn't mean the whole country is, you know, so city is.